All right. Hello, I'm Ted Lutton. I'm a student at Bates College, and joining me virtually today, I have Adam Platz from the Baxter Brewing Company. This interview is part of an initiative to create an oral history of COVID-19 in the Lewiston-Auburn area to store at the Lewiston Public Library and the Muskie Archives. Adam, thanks for joining me. Would you mind explaining your role at Baxter?
Sure. Yeah, I have a dual role at Baxter. I'm the general manager of our brew pub called the Pub, and I'm also the director of Baxter Outdoors, which is our outdoor recreation event production company. So we produce live events outdoors.
Cool. Uh, so I imagine that outdoor element, I don't know. It seems obviously events have been challenging during COVID. Has the outdoor um, Baxter Outdoors been something you're looking to grow during COVID?
Um, I wouldn't say we're growing it during COVID. We've
Okay.
definitely lost a number of our events.
Hmm.
A lot of the larger volume events. We
Okay.
usually throw a large, I mean, actually, we throw a big 2,500 person beer festival in Lewiston, down in
Oh,
Samarpain
wow.
in June, typically. So that was immediately canceled.
Hmm.
Uh, and then kind of one of the other outdoor event product that we put together, we do a lot of races. So a lot of trail runs, a lot of mountain bike races. We've had to obviously cap attendance on those, but we've been able to continue a number of the races, which is really nice. Um, if for nothing else, for the 50 people who show up, it gives them
Hmm.
something to be excited for. But now we've definitely taken a hit on the event side throughout the whole summer.
Well, I think it's really great that you guys are both sort of running your business that sort of extends across New England and the country in terms of the distribution of the beer,
Right.
but you are also really giving back to the community and showing people sort of all the great stuff that Lewiston-Auburn has to offer. So I think that's really great. Would you mind explaining why Baxter is in Lewiston and not somewhere else like Portland or Boston?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a couple reasons. I think the most poignant piece is that this is where we're all from.
Hmm.
We all went to Edward Little High School or Lewiston High School, and we spread apart and went to college and lived out of state, and then we all decided to come home. So there's a number of us who have been in this company now for almost 10 years, and including our original founder, all kind of went to high school together. So geography is a big piece of it. This is just where we're from.
Hmm.
I think in hindsight's always 2020 obviously, but I think that also being in Lewiston-Auburn gives us in my opinion, a leg up because we're different than a lot of the other big main brands.
Hmm.
uh, I think that in Portland, you've got some fantastic beer brands down there, and they're all kind of competing with each other.
Hmm.
Um, and you kind of have these sleepers throughout the state. You've got some great brands in Lewiston-Auburn and Bangor and Cushnock and Augusta. And
Hmm.
I think there's a lot to be said for representing parts of Maine that aren't Portland.
Hmm.
And I think that's influenced our brand and our brand dialogue and our messaging. Our slogan is distinctly Maine. And being someone who's from Maine, I think Lewiston is certainly more distinctly Maine than the old port.
Hmm.
And for you as someone who goes to Bates, you see Lewiston, you see its upside, its struggles. It's a very real place.
Hmm.
Um, I think we take a lot of pride in that in both our product and our brand.
Yeah. Um, I mean, I think the fact that you and your friends decided to start something this big together and it's grown into like a really meaningful part of Lewiston-Auburn, that you're one of the biggest businesses and that you really sort of show the world what Lewiston-Auburn is capable of. I think that's really great that you guys have been able to accomplish that.
Yeah, I mean, we take a lot of pride in our hometown. I think it's also just an example of, I mean, any, you can do this anywhere. You could
Hmm.
have a successful business in Rumford or Millinocket. Every every city and town that isn't in the limelight all the time still has tremendous potential. That's obviously a lot of the work that you do with Sam Boss is
Hmm.
kind of seeing this community for what it is. And I think that's really cool too. I think a lot of Bates students don't get that perspective. They stay within the walls of Bates and they don't see what's going on in town here. So I think this is also pretty awesome that you guys are doing this.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think particularly during COVID, there's been a lot of awareness about all of the all of the companies and the farms that are local, and I think a lot of people really care about supporting businesses like Baxter, because you all make a meaningful part of the community, and sort of what makes Lewiston-Auburn special.
Totally.
Um, would you want to speak to what the biggest challenge you've overcome in the last 6 months at Baxter has been?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the biggest challenge is labor and just dealing with who we can employ and who we can't employ during the COVID time.
Hmm.
It's really hard when you're making decisions that affect people's livelihoods. Um, and obviously, when COVID hit right in March, we temporarily laid off a lot of. I'm specifically responsible for the restaurant, so we laid off a lot of our hourly employees, and that really sucks. It's a really shitty feeling. But we closed. Our business was shuttered for 3 months. We did to go, and we weren't incredibly successful as a to go business. Um, so I think the biggest, the thing we've overcome is now that we're open again. I'm proud of how we've started to rebuild this company. And again, by company, I just mean the restaurant business.
Hmm.
We started to rebuild the restaurant business, and it's been slow to come back. But I just hired a new server yesterday, and it's
Hmm.
every little incremental step towards getting back to where we were. And it's not about profitability. It's not about it's about giving these folks an income and a job. So I'm proud of the fact that we're kind of on our path back to normalcy. I think it's going to take some time. I mean, I tell my guys that we could be in this pattern for 6 to 12 months. This isn't going to go back to normal immediately, but we are making strides and we're doing so responsibly. And it feels good when we can bring someone back on payroll. So
Hmm. Yeah. Um, so I know that you guys do most, or I think exclusively canned beer, if I'm correct, right?
yep, cans and
So
kegs.
has that set you up in sort of a better position than other craft breweries?
Um, I think every craft brewery is a little bit different. So I wouldn't want to make
Hmm.
a blanket statement that say, we're better set up than another. I
Hmm.
think, as it pertains to our situation, we do rely heavily on distribution, meaning we make beer, we sell it to a distributor, and the distributor sells it in turn to a retail entity. Because we do that so much with cans, as you mentioned, yeah, that's been a huge benefit to us because a large percentage of our business takes place in Hannaford and Shaw's and Market Basket and Shop and Save or whatever. Um, so that's been good. Um, and relative to other breweries, yeah, we do have a very high percentage of beer that goes into those retail entities. So that's been helpful. That said, like every other brewery, we got slaughtered with kegs. As restaurants close, there's no opportunity to sell kegs anymore. So those are also a big part of our business.
Hmm.
Going dark on those for 4 months definitely hurt, but we've been creative and resilient and figured out ways um, to move our beer and put it into the packages that it needs to be in. And yeah, so having that access to canning and selling our cans has been a huge benefit for us. I can't really speak to what
Yeah.
other are going through,
Hmm.
but
Um, so how is Baxter different today than sort of at the beginning of the COVID shutdown in March? I know you already spoke about how the restaurant has really, things have improved since then, but
yeah. I mean, again, I can't really speak to the business as a whole from a kind of a management perspective,
hmm.
but my perspective as an employee of the brewery, um, I think we're both fortunately and unfortunately, I think we're a little leaner and meaner. I think we're leaner, unfortunately, because certain people did lose their jobs over COVID, and that really sucks. And some of those, most of those have come back, some of them have not. Um, but I think that those of us, for the, I don't know the exact numbers, but for the majority of people who are back and working, I think people kind of understand, like, we have to produce, we all have to work hard. Every minute that we're here, we have to be, you know, fighting for a company, fighting for this brand. Um, and so I think that's the biggest change is I think, we show, you don't take anything for granted, realizing that really any business is just a house of cards. If you lose your ability to bring in revenue, you're screwed. Whether that's a brewery or a restaurant or you publish books, whatever. So I think this has been a big wake up call for us and tons of businesses to really take nothing for granted.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, so given all the given the like meaner and leaner comment, um, how you want to be, um, has this changed how you all have envisioned Baxter's future?
That's a good question. Well, I think, hmm, I don't know. I mean, I think from the brewery's perspective, you have to ask Jen, and I'm not sure, Ted, if you're the one speaking to Jen or if someone else is talking to Jen, but Jen's the president of the brewery.
Okay.
I think that, yeah, there are probably some pieces that influence, her thoughts on, do we need to sell even more cans than we do kegs in case this happens again? So I don't know how it kind of influences her business strategy. I could have a couple
Yeah.
kind of theories and philosophies of my own. I think on the
Mhm.
restaurant end though, yeah, definitely. I mean, things like 6 feet apart, like those are to me, like, we are very fortunate to have a very large restaurant. So we have a lot of square footage to work with, but some of those precautions, like, I'm thinking to myself, we should just be doing this in general. If this happens again, if there's a pandemic in 3 years, I'd prefer to not have my revenue slash 50%. I just want to see a 10% bump. And so if I operate over the next couple years in kind of more of a COVID friendly way, even if we don't have COVID, that means next time this happens, the business will be able to just keep going. And obviously I'm not gonna, 2 years from now, I'm not, hopefully I won't have to wear a mask. But I think there are some pieces of how we're running the business that will carry over into the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, so can you explain sort of what the inside of the restaurant looks like, or sort of how diners are interacting with Baxter today and how that's different than it would have been in
Yeah,
February?
totally. Well, our space it's a beautiful old refurbished mill from the 1850s. So you walk in and you're kind of in 4,000 square feet of, it's kind of two stories, just wide open, post and beam, big bar. Um, Pre-COVID, that place was packed. I think our fire code's like 215 or something. We had 50 seats around the bar. We had 100 seats on the floor. Two to three bartenders at any time, four servers. Just a madhouse. People running around, drinking, eating. Real lively place. And now, obviously, because of there are restaurant limitations on the volume of people you can have in there. For a very long time, the limit's been 50 people, and was just recently modified this week to be up to 100, or half of your capacity. So we can now have more people in there. But for the last couple months, where we've had 50, yeah, it looks a lot different. We've got just 10 seats around the bar. We've got essentially two tops, two chairs with a plexiglass in between them and the bartender, and we've got five of those spaced 6 feet apart around the bar. So we've gone from 40 seats at the bar to 10. On the floor, where we used to have tables and seating for about 100, we've now got seating for about 38. So kind of small four tops and six tops, plenty of space. And then as a result, the staff is far fewer. We typically have one bartender behind there now compared to three before. And I might only have two servers out on the floor compared to four. So it's just kind of a redistribution of tables and labor. But that said, we're getting a lot of positive feedback about the safety precautions that we're taking. A lot of people who feel very comfortable dining at Baxter because they know they'll be secluded. They see us wiping down everything. There's hand sanitizer on the tables. Um, Menus are being thrown away after one use, which is really unfortunate, but it's not a cost that we have to take on to be safe. So lots of little things, but I think it's better to be safe than sorry in this environment. So, and it's
Mhm.
just frankly the right thing to do. So,
Yeah. Uh, I think that um, obviously everyone's had to change, but the food and beverage industry, you all have faced some really big challenges because your business model requires everyone coming together and enjoying their time together in person. And I think um, when this is over, people will want to get back together again and do that. But you all are really caught in the middle of something that you didn't really you got unlucky, right? And but obviously you're doing whatever you can to make that happen, and um, I think that's really great. Um, so you guys are in one of the old Bates mills. Um, I think that's pretty significant symbolically for the Lewiston community that you've taken something that used to represent the big old industry in the town and you're sort of moving it into the future. Um, yeah. What?
yeah, yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh no, ask the question. I wasn't sure if you were gonna ask a
Okay.
question or looking to just comment.
I mean, what do you think? Um, do you see more breweries opening up in Lewiston?
Definitely, yeah. I mean, over time, of course. I don't think you're gonna see it right now.
Hmm.
But yeah, I think that one, I mean, Lewis and Auburn has a population that can sustain a lot of business. And I think that, I guess, to tie it in with your comments about the mill, um, to me, what the mill represents is a potential that this city has that never left. I think people have gotten down on Lewis and Auburn in the past from time to time, just reputation or whatever. But the potential of these towns hasn't gone away. I mean, we have the geography, we have the buildings, we have the human power, we have the mines, we have it all. So to me, the mill represents what we've had and us taking advantage of what we have in this community. Um, with regard to new breweries, yeah, I think new breweries will come to Lewis and Auburn because I think there's a demand for it. I mean, I think there's a demand for more restaurants, more breweries. Obviously, this could take years, especially with dealing with COVID now. I mean, that's going to linger for a long time. But yes, I do think there will be more breweries because there are many places in Lewis and Auburn, just like the mill, old buildings, parcels of land that are just waiting to be developed. There are a lot of beautiful structures and beautiful views and beautiful access to water. I mean, we should have restaurants on the river, like they do up in Augusta on the Kennebec. And I
Hmm.
just think it's a matter of time before that happens because the infrastructure is all there.
Hmm. Yeah. Uh, would you would you say you guys are part of like the culture of the town now? I mean, you
Definitely. Yeah. I
you're
think we
so
always have.
go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I think we always have been. I mean, the people who work for us grew up in town, and I mean, just like I
Hmm.
did. So definitely.
Yeah. Um, how what made Baxter decide how is Baxter Outdoors and the brewery combined and how did that part of the business get started?
So that actually got started about 10 years ago when I came back to Maine. I guess it was 9 years ago now. I had been working in events, in event production, large scale 5Ks and big events in Manhattan and DC and Boston. But I wanted to move home to Maine. So I moved back, and my friend Luke Livingston was the original founder of Baxter Brewing Company. we went to high school together. So I pitched him on an idea of an events division, and I had been inspired by, excuse me, the events produced by like Red Bull. I admire Red Bull because they've found a way to, I mean, turn into what I believe is maybe the shittiest beverage ever made. I think Red Bull's disgusting. They've created, I think, the most admirable marketing platform I've ever seen in my entire life. What they do with sport and outdoor events is amazing, and they make a lot of money off of doing that. So I said to Luke, hey, we should have an events division, and rather than spend $20,000, $50,000 sponsoring other people's events, let's make them ourselves. So instead, we created a 2,000 person beer festival, and we created a 10 event trail running series and mountain biking series. Um, so that's kind of how it got started. And then, ever since then, we've just been kind of brand ambassadors of the beverage. And, so I throw events, and they're human powered, and they're typically out in the woods. We don't do anything on pavement. So it's trail running, mountain biking, snowshoeing. So we'll go to these areas, we'll pull out catering permits or work with private landowners, and we'll bring out some Baxter beer. So after the race, you get to have a can of beer if you're 21. Um, and so that's how we've been able to kind of connect the brand. And it's a bit cliche what I'm about to say, but Baxter Outdoors and Baxter very much are like a lifestyle brand, and I hate that
Hmm.
term. I think it's really overused. But there are a lot of people who associate and respect the Baxter brand, not even for the beer, simply because we encourage people to be healthy and get outdoors and sweat and get your heartbeat up. So that's my goal, is to connect people who may or may not be beer drinkers to kind of our brand and what we believe in.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that the outdoor element is really giving it's not just beer anymore when you have um, a connection to the outdoors and the community, and I think that's a really great thing. How did you get the beer festival in Lewiston started? Was that your doing?
That was Luke. Luke and I. I think there was three of us: Luke, myself, and another. This would have been. I think this summer would have been the seventh annual. So I think the first one would have been 2014.
Hmm.
And yeah, we got together. We had all been to beer festivals before. Some beer festivals you go to, they do it right. Others they don't. We decided we wanted to have an outdoor beer festival. Um, and we just wanted to treat the breweries really well. We wanted to pay them to be there, and we wanted to buy them lunch. And when you have breweries who are engaged, you have customers who are happy. And so philosophically, we just had this idea of how we wanted to run a beer festival, and so we did it. And so we did it through the first 1 year, 2 year, 3 years. It was up and down. One year we made a ton of money, one year we lost a ton of money. And then over subsequent years, we just dialed it in and got it to a point where we were really proud of the product we were producing. And at that point, the attendance just kind of increased year after year, and it went from 1,200 to 15 to 2,000 to 25. And we obviously canceled it last year, but I think people are going to be excited. It'll be, we'll sell it again for next June, and cross our fingers that um, you know we don't have another pandemic or COVID isn't still around. But luckily, we can do it in a way that if it is canceled, it's a kind of no questions asked, 100% refund to everybody. So it's kind of a safe bet for us. We can do it, and if we lose it, we refund everyone, and that's okay. But we'd love to be back in June with our beer fest.
Hmm. Yeah, well, that's awesome. I don't want to take too much more of your time this morning. Is there anything else that you want to say about Baxter?
Not really, other than to, I guess also just like to share the love in Lewiston-Auburn. Like Baxter is one of, I love Baxter. I'm proud of what we do, and Baxter's one of a number of very engaged and committed companies to this community.
Hmm.
And whether it's Baxter or Side by Each or Gritty's or you know Geiger Brother, companies that are entrenched in this community. It's important to support your neighbors, and that's what I would end with. COVID has been tough for us all, for all the restaurants, all the the hair salons and the spas and the businesses. So it's good to get out there and spend local, and even if it's just emotional support for people who who own businesses, that's what we all need right now is recognizing the assets in our community and supporting them.
Yeah, that that's really that's important. Uh, Thanks so much for joining me this morning, Adam.
Absolutely. Thanks for having
Yep. All right. Have a good day.
me. Okay, thanks, Ted.
Bye.